I want to start by thanking both of our witnesses. One of them who looks very familiar, I think I spent some time with you and a bunch of other people out at St. Elizabeth's yesterday and for a tour. It was very interesting. Thanks for spending that time with us. But Commissioner Nina Albert and David Maroney for agreeing to testify before our committee this morning. We're here today to examine the current use of federal office space, affectionately known as the federal real estate footprint, and to identify opportunities for improving how we manage these assets on behalf of the American taxpayers. The General Services Administration, GSA, manages more than 363 million square feet of space across the country in 8,400 buildings. That's a lot. That's the equivalent of 240 U.S. Capitol buildings. Think about that. It's the equivalent of 240 U.S. Capitol buildings. Unfortunately, a recent GAO report found an alarming amount of this space is currently underutilized. According to this report from GAO, federal headquarters buildings on average have an occupancy rate of only 25%. Low occupancy is not a new challenge, as some of you know. In fact, the management of federal real property has been a challenge for decades. In 2023, the GAO placed the management of federal buildings on their high-risk list, due in large part to underutilized space. This to-do list, as I like to call it, Tom Coburn and I were partners together on the Homeland Security Committee, and we worked a lot with the GAO on their high-risk list year after year. But this to-do list, as I like to call it, calls attention to federal agencies and programs, areas that are high risk due to their vulnerabilities to fraud, to waste, to abuse, to mismanagement, and are most in need of transformation. Our late colleague, Senator Tom Coburn for Oklahoma, was a great partner, as I said, in our bipartisan efforts on the Homeland Security Committee to improve federal property management practices. Every 2 years, at the beginning of a new Congress, the GAO puts out their high-risk list. I always think of Tom Coburn and sort of renew my energy and my interest in making sure that we get as much of that off that list undertaken and completed. Well, until now it's 2023, and the management of federal buildings remains on the high-risk list more than 20 years later. And to make matters more complicated, the GAO is considering adding the maintenance backlog for federal buildings to that list in 2025. It's clear that underutilization remains a problem, especially as many federal employees continue working remotely following the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, as President Biden calls on more federal employees to return to the office, GSA must work with agencies to identify ways to consolidate, co-locate, and dispose of space to meet current and future needs. After all, an average federal building capacity of 25% is to be blunt about it, I think it's a waste of resources. It's not sustainable or fiscally responsible way to manage our federal real estates. So we know that GSA faces significant challenges when it comes to modernizing and right-sizing our federal buildings. But as I often say, in adversity lies opportunity. I'll say it again this morning. In adversity lies opportunity. More than half of GSA managed leases are set to expire by 2027. This is an opportunity for the agency to truly right-size our federal office space after years of just talking about it. We also know that it's possible to save the federal government and our taxpayers money, a lot of money, while tackling climate change at the same time. Last Congress, we provided the GSA with robust funding through bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act to modernize and right-size buildings in their portfolio. This includes making buildings more energy efficient and resilient to climate change, as well as promoting the use of low-carbon construction materials. We look forward to hearing more on the implementation of these investments from our witnesses today. And with that in mind, yesterday I was able to join some of the folks in this room, some people sitting behind me, to again visit the Department of Homeland Security's St. Elizabeth campus. This is a project I've been focused on since my time as chairman of the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. The Department of Homeland Security began efforts to consolidate its headquarters in 2005. It's been a long, complicated process, Thanks to a $288 million investment from the Inflation Reduction Act, GSA has been able to finally relocate the headquarters of the U.S. Cyber Security and Infrastructure Security Agency, known as CISA, as well as the Immigration and Customs Enforcement to the St. Elizabeth's campus, and that's no small feat. According to GSA, these consolidation efforts are going to reduce the department's real estate footprint by over 1.2 million square feet in the capital budget region, the equivalent of 21 football fields. I did 21 football fields. And what's more, it's expected to save taxpayers some $1.3 billion with a B, over the next 30 years. As I said earlier today, today's hearing is an opportunity to think strategically about how we move forward together to support and encourage GSA's efforts to right-size and modernize the federal workforce. It's going to take a collaborative effort on the part of the GSA and each federal agency to determine the amount of office space that the government needs now and into the future as workforce policies continue to evolve. And with that, we look forward to hearing the testimony of what efforts GSA is already taking to address the challenges of managing the federal real estate portfolio, as well as what we can do and be doing to be better stewards of the federal person, taxpayers' money. As I often say, everything that I do, I know I can do better. The same can be said here. We can do better. We need to do better. And before we hear from our witnesses, I'm happy to turn to our ranking member, Senator Capito, for her opening remarks. Senator Capito, thanks for your strong interest in this, ongoing interest in this topic, and for your encouragement for us to hold today's hearing.